Hey everyone, this is DJ.
And this is Ish.
And this is
Season 7 of Pero Let Me Tell You. That's from Italy.
Well, I'm not in Italy anymore.
Yeah, well, not anymore, but you were.
Okay.
Or are you coming back from, are you contacting us from another time zone?
Can you imagine?
I can, actually.
Actually, no, wait. Have we done that? Have we recorded from different time zones? While you and I were in different time zones?
Not while you and I have been in different time zones. From a different time zone, yes, in LA. But
well, yes, we recorded from a different time zone.
Right.
But you and I were not in a different time zone.
No, we were not.
Okay, well, I'm back.
You are back. Listeners, he's back.
I'm back.
You're back. I missed you.
I missed you too. I was saying this is the longest that I think you and I have been in like 3 weeks.
In a long time.
In a long time. So, well, welcome everybody to episode 306
Yes,
of
and
Pero Let Me Tell You.
back.
And I am back. I missed everyone. I missed you. I didn't necessarily miss being home. I'm not one of these people that when I go on vacation, I'm like,
No.
I miss my bed. I'm like, no, I don't.
No.
I don't. I don't miss shit.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. So I'm back, everybody. Thank you so much. I thank you to our wonderful co-hosts.
Yes,
for
yes,
3 weeks.
yes.
Well, thank you for carrying on.
It's what I do.
Well, I mean, listen to
I
our
soldier
to our
on.
Pero Primos. We told you
Rain or shine.
you're
There's
getting an episode, and there was a lot of shining in the last 3 weeks, but there was a little bit of rain.
Oh, there was rain here.
Yeah, no,
sure.
and all this started with rain. So,
Yes. And I'm just glad that you decided to leave for 3 weeks where like nothing happened in the news.
well, that's true. Well, that's a good
I'm
thing.
being sarcastic.
Oh, I was gonna say. Well, you know what though? Maybe it did, and I didn't know because I was not in touch with anything.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough.
with anything American or stateside.
Fair enough. There was no debate. There was nothing. You
You know, it's so funny that the night of the debates, my parents watched. They're like, knowing that I work in politics, they're like, "Aren't you gonna watch this?" I'm like, "No."
I'm on vacation.
I'm like, no.
No.
Porque me voy a recondenar.
Pa' que sufrir.
And then, I'm in Italy, so I'm like, no.
No, después te cae mal la pasta.
Right. So,
And the gelato.
Pero Primos, ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen, listeners, you're going to get a full episode of my Italian trip. Or, it's going to take a lot of content.
Yes. I mean, today we're going with you back to Italy, essentially.
I want to go back to Italy.
Me too. I haven't been there since.
I mean, I'll be happy going to Italy and Epcot Center at this point.
Well, you know what? They're opening in Italy here in Miami.
Oh, I did hear that.
Yeah.
Although going to Italy and Epcot Center probably costs as much nowadays as going to the real Italy.
Probably more.
You're right.
Probably more. It's probably cheaper to go to real Italy.
Right. And if you have to, you know what, though? We're sort of laughing at this, but it's not.
No.
If you have to fly to Disney World, like to Florida,
It's comparable.
Let's say you live in the West Coast and you
Right.
have to fly, and then you have to pay almost $200 per person to get in there and pay inflated food prices. It probably comes out the same.
It's cheaper to go to Italy.
Yeah.
Just go to Rome.
Let's go to Rome.
Just go to Rome.
Let's go to Rome.
It's okay.
Or you could go to the Venetian in Las Vegas.
Which is as expensive.
Right, but I mean, I think you would agree that going to the Venetian in Las Vegas, I don't think it's more expensive than going to Italy, but going to the Venetian in Las Vegas is it's a bigger experience than going to Epcot Center. As much as I love
I was going
Epcot
to say, and that's
Center.
coming from you who love
Well,
Epcot Center.
it's my,
Yes,
right, but Epcot
yes.
Center is a one-day thing.
No,
Whereas,
but I'm saying that says a lot coming from you.
Right,
yeah,
whereas the
yeah.
Venetian is, you're in Vegas.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true.
It's the whole
That's true.
thing. So, yes, everybody, I'm back. I'm happy. Well, I'm happy to be back with all of you. So, there's a lot of little tidbits I want to say. Before we start anything, I want to give a shout out to some Pero Primos that I actually were in town and had dinner with. Leslie and Julio, who listened to us from San Antonio.
Yes, they're the ones who sent us the care package for Buc-ee's.
Yes. Oh, and the great seasoning from from Buc-ee's and from HEB. They're Pero Primos, they're great
Yes.
listeners and now friends. So they were in town. So met up with them, had dinner. It was great.
Oh, that's
It was
awesome.
great. So it was
That's
great seeing
awesome.
them, and it was a lot of fun. So Leslie and Julio,
Yes.
Their son was also there, JJ. So you were all wonderful and lovely. So thank you so much. And we had a great time. We were all together. So there's just so much to unpack here.
Well, speaking about unpacking, I mean, I packed the car to take you guys to the airport.
Yeah, that was my parents thought they were Jay-Z and Beyonce. So, aside from the luggage issues,
In all fairness, they were going to a celebrity wedding.
they were. Oh, wait. Before we start this, congratulations to the reason why we all went to Italy, to my cousin Roger and my nouveau cousin, my new cousin Eric, on their wedding. It was a lovely, lovely, beautiful wedding. It was like celebrity wedding. I had never felt so poor. I was like, oh. I was like, well,
You're like, enjoy this.
I was like, wow, this is like what my house costs. But anyway, congratulations to them.
Yes.
Much happiness and wonderful things, and the reason why we were all there. But it was just a joyous, just completely joyous occasion. It was wonderful. It was wonderful, and it just wasn't the wedding. There was like a lot of different activities. There was their welcome party, like 3 days before the wedding, was like a normal person's wedding.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Got it.
Like there was a dinner service. There was an open bar. There was music.
Oh, wow.
There was a band. I'm like, this is a wedding.
Wow.
But no. That was like the preview.
Yeah.
So
Meanwhile, somewhere Stephanie is taking notes on this so that she can eventually do one herself. Yeah.
So I wanted to share I want to obviously share my Italian experience with all of you guys. But I actually have to start by saying that I've missed 3 episodes because of this trip. But in reality, I was only supposed to miss 2.
Yep.
Because some things went down right before I left on vacation.
In true Borges fashion.
That you can't make up. So that is sort of why I was out 3 weeks. Again, I was supposed to be out 2. So 3 weeks ago, you might remember Pero Primos that David from Shiver
David.
Podcast guest hosted that day with you, but that was not supposed to be the case. I was supposed to host that day, and
Thank you so much, David, for
yes, David. Thank you for.
You want to talk about
it
a
was
pinch.
literally last minute.
Yeah.
So listeners, here I was. Usually we, as you know, we record on Thursdays, which is Fake Friday. So here we were on Thursday, and I'm leaving to Italy that Monday. Okay, so 72 hours, and that Thursday, my mom hadn't been feeling great, so my mom wanted to go to the doctor just to get a a checkup and get the blessing to go.
Smart.
Yeah. So on Thursday, she had a stress test done. And for those of you, some of you may know what that is, others may not. A stress test is what they call in Spanish la tera. They put you on a treadmill and they make you run like hell. And they also give you stuff to like make your heart beat faster. So they put a lot of stress in your heart to see how your heart reacts. And it's a very, very important test in terms of heart safety.
It's a standard test.
Yeah, it's usually for older people. But it's a very important test, and usually those tests tell you how healthy your heart is, and if you have any clogged arteries and things like that. So my mom was going to go get the stress test. I was actually on the phone with her when my dad was driving her to go get the test. So then I tell my dad, well, just call me when the test is over.
Right.
So at about 4 o'clock. So I was in a really good mood because I had gotten my ticket through my American Express points.
Right.
And for some reason or another, when I got my ticket, I wasn't able to pick my seat on the plane.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't know if that always happens, but
Probably
for whatever
happens, yeah.
reason, I was not able to pick my seat. So that afternoon, I was able to pick my seat. Like I called American Express and they were like, "Oh, we'll take care of it for you." And I picked my seat. I was sitting where I wanted to be sitting.
Right.
And I was like actually in a really good mood because I was stressing out a little bit about that. I was like, I'm going to get the middle seat, right?
Yeah. And you and I are not middle seat.
Yeah.
people.
And I'm going to be just like, knock me out.
Yeah.
Knock me out. Anyway, so, I'm in a good mood about that, whatever. And then about 4:30, I get a call from my dad. Oye, lo de tu mamá está bien grave, está bien mal, ven para acá. So I dropped what I was doing, and I rushed to the cardiologist office. And this is why, I don't know if this is something that comes with age. The older that you get and the more life you live, you sort of become very, I don't know if the right word is paranoid, but very conscious over the fact that a phone call can change your life. Right. So here I was so happy about one thing, and then I got a phone call that completely changes everything. So I rush over to the hospital and I meet with a cardiologist, and her cardiologist tells me she failed the stress test.
Because her cardiologist was in the hospital. She wasn't in the hospital.
Well, the cardiologist, the cardiologist, his office is like attached to the hospital.
Okay.
But she was at the cardiologist office, not admitted in the hospital. So I meet with him, and he's like, she failed the stress test. She has, I think, 3 clogged arteries.
Jesus.
And a vein also that is not doing well. This is very serious. She needs to be admitted right now to the hospital, emergency room right now. Do not wait. Take her right now. This is very serious. It's very delicate. She cannot get on that plane. If she gets on that plane, she may not get off. I mean, those are very
that's
big
a serious,
words to be told.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, doctor, okay. So what does this mean in terms of like moving forward? And he's like, this will probably mean surgery. And when he means surgery, he means open heart surgery. So I was like, okay. I remained pretty calm.
Well, you have to.
I was like, okay, let's go to the hospital.
Isn't it funny though in those situations where like when you have to remain calm, how almost immediately you just do, right? Like you step into that position of like, okay, somebody needs to be calm.
But sometimes I lose my shit. But in that particular time,
no, but you're good in a crisis.
Yeah, I think I am, but I could lose my shit sometimes. But I was the only one with my parents, and my mom is a very nervous person. So I know that if she sees me nervous, it's going to be bad for her. So I was like, I'm very calm.
Right. Matter of fact.
Yes, I'm very like, okay, we're going to go to the hospital, which is like right attached to this building. And we're just going to take it step by step. All right, let's go. So we go, she gets we go to the emergency room where they're waiting for her to get admitted. By this point, all my family's there. Including my cousin who's getting married in
72 hours.
Everybody's there. So she gets admitted. She goes inside the emergency room, and her vitals were fine. And I know from the time that she had a heart attack 4 years ago that what you never want to hear is that your cardiac enzymes are elevated, because that means you're having a heart attack. Her cardiac enzymes were stable. All her vitals were stable, and she was very calm. So we knew she was in critical, like she was in crisis at that moment. And I'm like, okay.
And I can't stress this enough. Your mother is a very healthy person.
My mom's a very healthy person.
Your mother wakes up every morning and does like sit-ups and jogs. And
my mom doesn't even eat birthday cake anymore.
Right.
Like,
that's what I mean. Like,
how.
So this is not someone who has, her history of heart disease is clearly genetic.
It is genetic. Yeah. So anyway, so I think that when something like that happens, which is how I found myself, you sort of remain calm because you're processing it. Because I'm like, wait, I was like at 2:00, I was happy that I had to pick the seat of the plane, and it's 5:00 and I'm in the emergency room with my mom. Right. And now we're talking about open heart surgery, and we're talking about second and third opinions, and what surgeon do we want to take her to? Right. Like, we're having these conversations, and 3 hours ago I was happy about my plane and my, anticipation to Italy.
Seat. Yeah.
And like, I was processing that. Like, what? Right? So, obviously, we were all like super worried, and she gets admitted. She gets to the room. They were great. We were at South Miami Hospital. They're actually excellent. Yeah. And we didn't have to wait that long to get a room, because sometimes when you're in the emergency room, it takes about 45 days to get a room.
Yeah, no, but when you have cuando es el corazón,
to get admitted, but not a room. I'm talking about a room, admitted, a room, not the emergency room. We got a room maybe within an hour, 2 hours tops. And so that was on a Thursday. I was leaving on Monday. That Friday, So the next day was the last day I had to cancel all my hotels because I had gotten refundable ones. I'd paid more to get it refundable, right? So I was like, well, I have to cancel the hotels. Jesus. Right? Because I have until tomorrow. So like, and we're talking about thousands of dollars.
Right.
We weren't talking about
Motel
$200,
6, yeah.
right? We're talking about because it was all the hotels, right? Including their hotels as well. So I was like, okay, I stayed with her that night and I'm like, okay, well, this morning, what I'm going to do very calmly is I'm going to cancel all our reservations. And I did. I canceled all the hotels for both me and my parents. And because she was admitted late, so what they were going to do to her was, it's funny because it's one of these things that I know in Spanish but not in English, un cateterismo.
Okay, they were going to do the catheterization.
The cardiac catheterization. Yeah. But it's funny because that's one of those things that you just know in Spanish. Un cateterismo.
I don't know it in either, but sure.
Oh, you know? Yeah. Well, a cardiac cath, for those of you who don't know, it's like sort of the gold standard in heart not in heart health, in heart monitoring. They literally go either through your groin or through your wrist. It's a little cable that goes into your heart with a camera, and it looks at your heart and to see what's going on in your heart. And sometimes if you have plaque buildup or whatever, they're able to remove it during that procedure. It's a very run-of-the-mill procedure, but that is what will tell you what your heart health is and what's going on.
Right. Because up until now, it was just based on the stress test.
It was based on the stress test, which the stress test is a very big indicator, right?
Right. But until they go in.
Right. But this is like, there's certain tiers of tests. There's like an EKG, then there's like another type of EKG. Then there's a stress test. And then like the most, which is the most invasive test, because they are literally going in you, is the cardiac cath.
Say it in Spanish.
Cateterismo. Because they're literally looking into your heart with a camera. And I'm like, okay, well, she was going to do it that afternoon. So I'm there, on Expedia, going through my cancellation policies, canceling everything. I'm like, oh, the hotel, the Airbnb in Rome canceled. Oh, the hotel in Sorrento, canceled. Oh, the other hotel in Rome, when we get back, canceled. I was like, oh. Anyway, but I was focused. I was good. We were moving on. So she had the heart catheterization later in the afternoon. Again, my whole family was there. El whole batallón. It looked like an episode of Que Pasa USA. Mira que say that. I think that like the nurses just gave up in telling us like, oh, it's only 2 people per room. At one point there was like 11. Like, yeah,
so little.
They brought us
so few. For you guys, that's not a lot.
When she was in the emergency room, there was like 18 people. Jeez. Like, but the next day when we were like in the actual cardiac area of the hospital, there was like 11 people. No, see, the nurses started bringing seats into the little room she was in.
Why fight it?
Right? Yeah, they gave up. They were like, "What a hospital policy." Anyway, so they go in, to do the procedure. The doctor had told us, the procedure usually takes about half an hour to 45 minutes, but usually I find some plaque and I remove it, so it could take anywhere between an hour to hour and a half. So my dad and I are, we go out, we're waiting there. We actually left the little room she was in, and we're actually waiting in like the main family waiting area. And after like half an hour, the doctor comes out and he's like, she's doing fine. It was a false positive.
Jeez Louise.
And I was like, wait. I was like, hold on. I just canceled all of our hotels. I was like, but you mean to tell me? And it's funny because this is obviously, it's not even that this was good news. This was like the best news possible. Right. Because it wasn't even like, okay, your mom isn't that bad, but we still have to do this.
Right. I found something.
And it's not a big deal, but we still have to fix it. Right. And yeah, she's not going to be able to travel. Right. It was like, no. This is a false positive. She's perfectly fine to travel in 72 hours. We even asked the doctor, like, if she was your mom, would you let her travel? And he's like, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with her.
So we're going to Italy.
So I was like, again, I'm like processing. I'm like, wait, what?
Do you want to talk about mixed emotions?
I was like, what? I'm like, I need to get on Expedia.com right now. And it turned out great because all the hotels were sold out and the Airbnb was gone. But since I just canceled them, they were available now. And I actually got the hotel in Rome on a little bit of a cheaper rate.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the hotel in Sorrento. I actually saved like $80.
Coño, yeah. Nice.
So, and then the day before, that's when I called you and I was like, I can't record. My mom's in the hospital. She's not doing well. Bye.
I was like, well, I mean, let me know. I mean, keep me updated.
Yeah. So that was my pre-Italian.
Yes.
When we found out that she was okay, my cousin, the one of the wedding, Roger, he broke down because he had like the weight of the world on him. Because if God forbid my mom had to go through all of that, like half of the family wasn't gonna go.
No, it's true. Yeah.
So
and on top of that, he's gonna be thinking about her here.
Yeah. So thank God everything was fine. But that was a really tough moment. Like that was a really tough 48 hours. You want to talk about a roller coaster of emotions? Like I was like, wait. I was like, again, processing it. I
don't think you even had enough time to process it. The speed at which everything happened and you had to do and undo.
Right. Right.
Because it wasn't even just like, it happened so fast. No, you had to like cancel and then rebook on top of everything else.
Okay, so do you want to know something really funny?
Always.
So my father had on his own bought travel insurance for everybody.
He didn't tell you.
No, he had told me, but he bought it on his own. And he got it from protegetuviaje.com, which is based in Colombia. So everything is in Spanish. And, we love our Colombian brothers and sisters. Right. But the ones that I was dealing with are the ones that have the accent, the Maluma accent.
Oh.
Not the Sofia Vergara accent.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit harder to follow. Although I always say, although you and I are completely fluent in Spanish, if I'm going to deal with something technical, I'd rather deal with in English. So I was there speaking to the people protegetuviaje.com about the policy to see if they covered our cancellation fees. They're like, bueno, señor, porque sin embargo, I'm like, oh my God, what are you saying? And they don't have anybody that speaks Spanish because they are for the Spanish market.
Oh, so there was no English speakers there at all. Yeah, that's the thing is whenever it's something technical, I say this all the time. Like you said, we're fluent. If I sit down and the doctor starts talking to me in Spanish, either you need to switch to English or you need to switch to doctor.
No, because
technical things, I can't.
It was technical.
Yeah.
It was in an accent that I'm not as familiar with.
Right.
Right? Because, again, it was the Maluma accent. Right? Because, Colombia has many different accents, right? And some of them are thicker than others, and we love them all. But this one was a little bit harder to follow along. And then the lady spoke really fast. It was over the phone and WhatsApp. And I'm like, yo no le entiendo nada. Y me está hablando en español. Like... And you're
not to mention that you're already atolondrado with everything happening.
And I'm like,
right?
¿Qué me está diciendo ella? See, I would put it on she would leave me WhatsApp messages and I would play them to my dad, and I'm like, pero tú entiendes esto porque yo no entiendo nada. And he's like, no, yo no entiendo tampoco.
Coño, okay, entonces está mal la cosa.
But they were great. But I was like, oh my God.
They were helpful.
Protegetuviaje.com. Si usted quiere un seguro en español.
Well, see, look, free plug.
Yeah,
it's a free plug.
So, yes, that was the start of my Italian vacation.
Tremendo start.
So we had a great time.
Yes. You were there for about a week and a half? Almost 2 weeks?
No, 12 days.
12 days.
Yeah. We had a great time. There were lots of stories.
I was going to say, tell me your stories.
First of all, I want to tell you that on the plane, I thought about you when all this happened. It's a long plane, right?
From here to Spain.
Because we did a layover in Madrid. I don't know why I didn't do this on purpose. It just happened. On the plane, it's from here to Madrid is like 8.5 hours. I had time in my hands.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I wasn't
sleepy.
Work day. I didn't do this on purpose, but I watched back-to-back 3 biofilms. I watched the Bob Marley film, the Whitney Houston film, and the Tammy Faye Baker film with Jessica Chastain.
I feel like...
And I didn't do it on purpose. I wasn't like, I watched the Bob... Because I wanted to watch the Bob Marley film for a while. But it was not like I watched it and then it finished and I go, I'm going to watch another biopic. I kept scrolling and I'm like, okay, I haven't seen I Want to Dance with Somebody. Which, by the way, she's great. The actress is actually pretty good.
Okay. But
the movie is terrible.
The movie's awful.
And it's not chronologically correct. The movie was really bad. Just the storyline was not good. She was actually pretty good. And there were some big actors in there. Like Stanley Tucci was in that movie and everything.
He was Clive Davis.
and the scenes with her and Clive were actually pretty good, but the movie wasn't great. But I'm like, why did I just watch 3 biopics?
Also, I feel like it's one of these things is not like the others.
Bob Marley, Whitney Houston,
Yeah.
Tammy Faye Baker. And then I started watching the podcast of Day in the Life of a CEO. Yeah, that's like a really big podcast, video podcast. The Tammy Faye Baker one, have you seen it?
I saw it.
It's really good.
She's fantastic. She deserved that Oscar.
Do you know
100%.
that's what she won an Oscar for?
Yeah.
Do you know what I really liked about the Tammy Faye Baker one? I know we're going off topic here, but this is what we do. But let me tell you. So, there's a Tammy Faye Baker, Pero Primos, Tammy Faye Baker not documentary, like biopic.
Right. Well, the biopic is based off of the documentary The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
Okay, well, there we go.
Yeah.
You know what I thought they did a really good job at, which that is like good screenwriting, is that they neither made her the villain nor the saint, right? They showed her flaws, but then they showed how she was very pro-LGBT, how she helped people, like in the AIDS crisis in the 80s. But they also showed that, she lived a life of excess and the fur coat. So they didn't make her like one way or another, which I think that's how most people are, right?
They made her a human being.
Right. And I thought that was like very well done. Very well done. So yeah, 3 biopics later.
Sure.
We finally got to Madrid and the air conditioner in the airport was broken.
Oh, no.
So I'm like, welcome to the sauna of Baraja Airport in Madrid. So we had a great time in Italy. It was wonderful. For those of you who have not been to Italy, you should go when you can. Italy is just one of those countries that, I mean, it's hard to sort of grasp in one description because Italy's so diverse, right? So we flew into Rome. And the weather was actually pretty good. It was hot, but it was bearable. Okay. And
unlike here,
yeah, it was good. I mean, just Italy's amazing. And what I really want to say is that, so I had a quest on this trip that I don't think you knew about.
No.
So my mission on this trip, and it was a challenge I set for myself. And some of you Pero Primos and listeners may enjoy this. Some of you may be like, you're crazy. My goal was to find the perfect carbonara.
I mean,
I had carbonara almost every single night. If you poked me, I would ooze out carbonara. And it's funny because there were some restaurants that I went to. I'm like, I kind of want to also have this. And I'm like, no, but I'm having the carbonara.
So you literally just had carbonara like the entire trip?
Almost.
That's wonderful. I mean, I'm not hating it.
Yeah. I mean, my whole goal was to have the four pastas of Rome, which I sort of did, but I always had a carbonara. And I have a ranking of my carbonaras that I'm going to post on my Instagram, DJ Borges19 on Instagram. I can't even begin to tell you how much I love carbonara. Do you like carbonara?
I do. I like it so much that I had Flying Hippo's carbonara pizza while you were in Italy.
I haven't had his Flying Hippo's carbonara pizza yet. The problem with carbonara in the United States, there's a lot of problems with carbonara in the United States. First of all, I'll never forget.
You said it like it's a political stance.
Well, you know why? Because there's an Italian restaurant here by where I live. That's, I mean, I'll say who they are. Di Papa's. It's on Kendall Drive here in Miami. And they're actually, I really like them. They're great. They're great. I go there all the time. They don't have it in the menu anymore, but at one point in time, they had carbonara on the menu. And I remember I asked the waitress, oh, how's the carbonara? She's like, oh, it's great. We don't use egg, though, because some people are allergic to eggs. And I'm like,
so it's not carbonara.
But I'm like, then it's not carbonara. She's like, no, we use an onion sauce. And she's like, it's really good. And I tried it. It was good.
But it's not carbonara.
But I was like, this is anything but carbonara. Like, this is not carbonara.
I miss the carbonara at Eating House.
So carbonaras are something that not a lot of restaurants can do. Not a lot of them do well. And even the ones that do well, the protein in carbonara is guanciale, which comes from like the snout of the pig.
Yeah.
It's not pancetta or bacon. But here in the United States, they use pancetta or bacon because guanciale is harder to find.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm in Rome. And I am having carbonara. I am having all of it.
As the saying goes,
I
when
am
in
having
Rome.
all of it. And funny enough, I had a lot of good carbonara in Rome. A lot. In fact, it was really funny because like we stayed at an Airbnb, which was wonderful because the Airbnb we stayed on, it's a residential area, so it wasn't a tourist area. So it was filled with like cafes and shops and stuff that was local. And went to a bunch of restaurants there that had carbonara. And one of the restaurants actually there was like really highly rated with a carbonara. And I went, it was nothing. There was a little cafe, like literally right by the door of the Airbnb, like a little pub that I loved, had a great carbonara. And I'm having a whole section on today's episode about carbonara.
This is the learn section.
And when I was in Sorrento, which again, carbonara is Roman, it's not Italian. Because there's a difference between Roman food and Italian food.
Yes.
Down in Sorrento, which carbonara is not their shtick, I ordered it and it was literally pasta with scrambled eggs. But it still tasted good. But it was pasta. They didn't even try. The last night we were in Rome, we stayed in a hotel that was like in the middle of a working class neighborhood.
Okay.
And the streets were lined with cafes. And we went to this hole in the wall, unpretentious. It was kind of a little rundown restaurant. Not only was it the best carbonara I've ever had in my life, it was one of the best meals I ever had in my life.
Always the way.
I was like, when I tried that carbonara, I was like, I don't have words right now. Like, I need a moment to myself to process the delicious egg guanciale and, Parmesan Reggiano mixture. Like, I need a moment. So I ate a lot of carbonara.
As you should.
A lot. I mean, I ate like 8 of them.
Coño.
I'm not kidding.
You were there for 12 days.
I didn't have carbonara in my cousin's wedding because, I didn't pick the menu. Because I was about to Uber Eats that carbonara.
So again, if we're doing the math, you were there for 12 days. You had 8. The wedding was, I know it was at least 2 meals because it was the pre. So that's down to like 10 days.
Yeah. So let me ask you this because you've been to Europe many times.
It's been a
you've
while.
been to Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think the food in Europe is better? Because
Yes.
people always say, "Oh, the food in Europe
Yes.
is better." Do you think it's better?
I do.
Yeah. Me too.
I
think
do.
it's leaps and bounds better.
It just is.
And it's not to say American food isn't good, because obviously there's great restaurants here. Right. But I just find that food in Europe most of the food is not processed.
That's the thing.
And it's just like, for example, I was having a tomato soup in like a sort of a mid-range restaurant. It wasn't a fancy restaurant. Mm-hmm. It was just a little Italian restaurant and in Sorrento. And I was having a tomato soup and I'm like, oh my God, this is like really like eating a tomato. Like I'm like eating a tomato. And the waiter overheard me or something. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, you like the soup? And I'm like, yeah, it's so fresh. He's like, well, yeah, we picked it this morning.
I mean, there you go.
And I was like, really? Because in the U.S., like a tomato soup was probably that tomato was probably harvested last year.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, no. It's. I think it's a difference between like here, like you said, there's places that have excellent food. You have to seek them out. I think that in Europe, and maybe it's just because we're coming from the U.S., right? So obviously we're approaching it differently. It's almost like you can eat anywhere and it's just going to taste great. Like you don't have to seek it out in the same way.
Right. Like, for example, something as simple as like dipping the bread in olive oil, which we do here, which, by the way, that's not really an Italian thing. That's sort of an Americanized thing. Mm-hmm. But they do it there in some restaurants. Like, I would be dipping the bread in the olive oil, and I'm like, this is like the best olive oil I've ever had in my entire life. Like, this is like amazing, right? Just everything is good. Everything tastes fresher. Food is less processed. Por eso la comida no te cae mal. And it's heavy food. I mean, I was eating really heavy food.
También uno camina más.
Uno camina más. But you know that me, I'm the type of person that if I look at something, it's that's it. I have a stomach ache.
That's true.
I mean, 8 carbonaras, and I was good. And then, it's funny because, this was Tristan's first time to Europe, and, Tristan doesn't know that in the U.S. and in Europe, well, around the world, really, they have a lot more variety in snacks.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you want Kit Kat? Oh, there's like 25 types of Kit Kats. Oh, look at our pistachio Kit Kat.
Wait till he goes to Japan.
No, and all the potato chips too.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh my God, why don't they have these at home? And I'm like, Tristan, that's the same question I've been asking all my life, like since I first went to Europe 25 years ago.
Right to Frito-Lay.
Why is it?
I think it does have to do a lot with the American palate is very limited.
You're telling me.
No, it is. The American palate, I mean, look, I know we joke about it all the time, but it's like, ¿qué es lo que hacen los americanos para darle sabor a la comida? Le meten cachú.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's not this appreciation for nuances of flavor and taste. And again, I'm painting with a broad stroke here, but, whereas I think abroad, people use more seasonings and more spices and things like that. So it lends itself to them being more open to different flavors and flavor profiles.
So speaking of food, there is something I did want to mention to you. So I think I sort of mentioned to you. So this was actually, I think, my 4th or 5th time in Italy. I had been to Italy several times. And actually, every time I've been to Italy has been with my parents. And, my parents have actually traveled to Europe several times. So they're not new at this. Right. They've been around the block. I don't know what happened this trip, but my parents sort of lost their way. So there we were. We had been a few days in Rome. We were at a rest stop because I drove to Sorrento. And this rest stop was like Port St. Lucie on steroids.
Yes.
It was like a Costco, right? And, here they had like all these sandwiches and all these pizzas and like this buffet of like delicious Italian food and all that. And my mom's like, ¿Tú sabes qué? Aquí no hay sandwich. And I'm like, pero mamá, ¿cómo tú vas a decir que aquí no hay sandwich? Si aquí hay como 20 sándwiches. She's like, ay, sí, pero no tienen un sándwich cubano, una medianoche. And I'm like, Mom, you're in Italy. ¿Cómo que va a haber una medianoche? She's like, ay, sí, pero deben de tener más variedad. And I'm like, pero why do you want variedad when you could have a prosciutto and burrata sandwich? Or like another sandwich with like mortadella and like cheese and pistachio cream and all the, like these delicious things. She's like, ay, no. Pero aquí deben de tener una medianoche o algo así, porque mira, la medianoche no es americana y en los Estados Unidos la tienen. And I was like, I'm not getting into this conversation with her. So my mom was here in Italy looking for a medianoche sandwich. And then a few days later, when we were in Sorrento, the hotel had breakfast, but it was your standard continental breakfast, and there was some cheese and salamis and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, here I was with my breakfast. No, we had gone to breakfast somewhere actually for a cafe. And my mom's like, ay, Darín, pregunta aquí si tienen tostada. And I'm sure que te pueden tostar el pan.
Right.
Pero si tú buscas tostada cubana aquí en Italia, no hay. And she's like, ay, pero ¿sabes no tener tostada cubana? And I'm like, no, they don't have tostada cubana in Italy.
In Italy, yeah.
And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you people have been here before. What do you mean? I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
How long has it been?
You know what? I don't think my parents have been to Italy in their 70s. I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is.
That whole decade just threw them for a loop.
Yeah, the whole decade, from the late 50s to 60s to 70s, it was, But yeah, they were looking for like, aquí no tienen una medianoche. And I was like, no, mamá, no tienen una medianoche o un sándwich cubano.
But I love her logic.
Aquí no tienen carne de puerco. Or not the carne de puerco that you are
exactly. They have prosciutto. They have like all the other kinds of pork products.
But it was just funny. I was like, is this the first time you've like left the farm? Because like, I don't know what happened. That she was looking for.
I do love her reasoning for the medianoche and Cuban sandwich in the U.S.
Yeah, she's like,
she thought it through.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It was wrong, but she had a thought process. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing, pero primos and listeners, I haven't really talked to Ish about the trip because there were some things that I wanted to bring up live on the show, and I'm about to give you two really fun ones.
Okay.
So and this is buckle your seats, baby. It's gonna literally be a bumpy ride.
Oh my god. All right, Betty Davis.
So my parents had luggage for like Jay-Z and Beyonce. So getting a train was not economical because like while taking the train from Rome, because the wedding was in Sorrento, which is about a 2-hour train ride. But taking the train from Rome to Sorrento, they were going to charge the luggage. So it was going to be like $500 in luggage. And I couldn't find any that didn't have like a huge, a long layover in Naples. I'm talking about the train.
Yeah.
Like they would take us to Naples, and then, we had to wait like 3 hours in the train station in Naples.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna rent a car, and you know me, you know that I love to drive.
That's true.
Give me a driving adventure any day.
That's true. You've never driven in Italy?
I had never driven
in Europe
across the pond. I drove in New Zealand, and that was on the other. In New Zealand, they drive on the other side of the road.
Right.
So I was like, I can handle this. Yeah. So I rent a car, and I rent an SUV, right? Because we need, again, luggage for Beyonce and Jay-Z. So
we were also 5 people.
Yeah, it was a lot of people. Yeah, so we needed a bigger car. So anyway, my father was like, "Are you sure you want to drive?" Because the drive from Rome to Sorrento is only like 3 hours.
That's nothing.
And the drive is beautiful because you drive the Amalfi Coast, right? So it was beautiful. So I'm like, I'm totally for this. And my dad's like, "Are you sure you want to do it?" Rome is like crazy because you know that in Europe, traffic signs don't mean anything.
Less than here?
Yes, people just drive crazy. But I think that because everybody drives crazy, it works. Because I didn't see any car accidents or anything like that.
Okay. It's like New York style.
Yes.
Okay.
And, my dad's like, "Are you sure you want to drive here?" I'm like, "I drive in Miami." Like,
true.
I've driven in New York. True. I mean, I drove in New Zealand on the other side of the road. I'm like, I can handle Rome. So I did. I handled Rome. I was very careful, but we got through. We drove the Amalfi coastline. Beautiful. We get to Sorrento. Everything's wonderful. So where we were staying in Sorrento was on top of a hill, on top of a mountain. So Sorrento, like the main area of Sorrento is more like near like sea level.
Okay.
That's like where the square is, where the plaza is, and all the stores. And then obviously up the mountain, that's where other things are, hotels are and all that. Like literally we were in the top of the mountain.
Okay.
Right? Because where my cousin got married, it was a villa, and I stayed in the hotel across the street from the villa. So that was all that was there. We were literally on top of the mountain.
It was the hotel and the villa.
And that's it.
Okay.
And then, 3,000 feet down, there was, or whatever. Actually, the elevation was 3,200 feet because I looked up the elevation. Yeah. It was really high. I mean, we were on top of the mountain.
This is true.
In Sorrento. So this is where the story gets good. So, I got to the hotel. Everything was fine. I got to the hotel kind of like at sunset. So everything was fine. Great. Okay. So later that night, I was like, what's a perfectly great idea? Let's go out to dinner in the middle of the mountain.
In the car.
I'm like, let's go out to dinner. Like, why not? I drove here. Like, what's the big deal? So, because not too far from the hotel, maybe like 2 miles away, there was like a little town center. When I mean little, I mean it had like 5 stores.
Okay.
And like 5 restaurants and a church.
Okay.
It looked like something from a movie. Like little, and there were several restaurants there, and that's where we, I was like, let's go eat in one of the restaurants there because we had literally driven through that.
Okay, so you knew it existed.
Yeah, right. We had literally driven through that piazza, as they say, going up the mountain, right? So I was like, well, we could drive through it going down the mountain, right?
Stands to reason.
Not realizing that we couldn't. So I knew we were in trouble when. Okay, so actually,
why couldn't you?
Okay, so because it's a one-way street and it's closed off. So actually, I leave the hotel and I get the wrong road. And at one point in time, there was like 5 cars behind me, and they start honking at me, and 3 Italians get off the car, and they're like, "You're going the wrong way." And I'm like, "Well, how do you know I'm going the wrong way?" And he goes, "Because there's nothing up here."
Oh,
just like farmland. Further up the mountain, although we were on the top of the mountain. And he's like, and I'm like, "Oh, I want to go to the restaurants." "Yeah, you want to go to St. Agatha, you have to go, like, turn the car around." And I'm like, "This is a one-way street." And she's like, "No, it's not." And I'm like, "But this street is like 15 feet wide." And she's like, "No, this is a 2-way street." Because over there, when cars just use one street, so when you come head on to another car, one person stops, pull over, and the other car goes around you. I'm like, aha, that's how you do it. So I turned around. The 3 Italians got off their car, and they told me, "Turn around." And they were very nice, and I turned around. So I eventually found the little town center.
La Piazza.
We have dinner. Great. So now it's like 11 o'clock.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, well, let's go back the same way we came here. Well, no, you can't. Because in that little town center, it's a one-way. It really is a one-way street. So I'm like, okay, well, let me put the address of the hotel and the GPS and whatever. So about 2 seconds out of the town center, your GPS stops working and your phone has no signal. So I'm like, okay. So this is fun. So I'm like, the car has GPS.
Okay.
So the car had the GPS. All the phones were dead. The car had GPS. So I put the address of the hotel and we're on our way. You know when you get your GPS starts going rerouting. That's how I was. And I'm like, okay. So here we are. So it would like give me a route and then like 5 minutes later, like a few minutes later, it would reroute me and then it'll give me another route and then reroute me. That's así como yo estaba.
Meanwhile, you know you have to go there.
Right. So I'm here driving pitch black at night through like these dirt roads, like that are like they're not even roads. I don't even know what I'm doing at this point. I'm just like, because you know what? When you don't know where you're at and you can't see where you're at because it was pitch black, we were on top of a mountain. You follow that GPS blindly. I'm like, this is how people end up in the middle of the ocean on a GPS.
No, you're right.
Right? You're just like looking at the GPS,
Right.
and just like looking at the GPS, looking at your window, looking at the GPS, looking at your window. So I'm there driving down a dirt path, it seems, and I'm like, is this even a road? Like,
Oh my God.
and it just I keep going forward. And there's like nothing there. And again, it's pitch black. Maybe there's like one little house. And you just keep going forward. And again, these roads are like barely roads, and they're like 500 years old. And so I keep going and now I see like, oh, there's like two houses and the road is between the two houses. And I keep going towards it, and I keep going towards it, and I keep going towards it, and I got stuck between the two walls.
No, you didn't.
The car got stuck between the two walls.
No, you fucking didn't.
It did.
Your car got stuck between two houses?
Two walls, yeah, of the houses. So I was like, okay, let's turn. You know how your rear view mirrors turn in. I was like, let's turn in the rear view mirrors.
Step one.
This is why they turn in.
Because of this neighborhood.
I'm like, okay, well, we're stuck between two houses, two walls, and I'm like, well, I could go back. The car's stuck. I'm like, I could go back, but then I'm just gonna go back, or I could just go forward and just go forward. So I was like, well, I'm already stuck. I might as well go forward. So I'm like, I go forward, and you hear the car. So I'm like, well, I was like, well, let's go back in time to when I got the rental earlier today. So I was there at the rental agency. I'm there. I had declined the extra coverage.
No.
Wait, hold on. I had declined the extra coverage because when I rent a car, I never get the coverage
Nobody ever does.
because of my insurance.
Right.
So I'm there in line, waiting to sign the papers, and I'm looking at my Geico policy. And I'm like, it's a little unclear what the coverage is for international rentals. I'm just going to get the coverage.
You got the coverage.
I got the coverage. So the car's like... So then when I passed, I wedged out of there. I get off, and I'm like, oh, my God. It's like, oh, my God. I was like, well...
Menos mal that you got the coverage.
Like, let's just move on. Literally, let's just move on. So I just told everybody in the car, I was like, just hush. I don't want a word. Because I was surprisingly calm.
Right.
So I was like, the last thing you need is for me, the driver, to panic. So... And we didn't know where to go. Like the GPS was not working.
You already don't know where to go.
I was like, I wasn't afraid for my life, but I'm like, we're probably just gonna have to sleep in the car and wait for morning to come until some Italian farmer, finds us here. And I'm like, SOS.
That would be great.
So I was like, that's just what we're gonna have to do.
I already fucked up two houses.
Buckle up. So fucked up 2 houses,
and a
fucked
car,
up the car,
and a car, and a car,
and the car was black. So like I was like, yeah, it was bad. So anyway, so I'm like, okay, GPS, lead the way, rerouting. We go a little bit further, and again, nothing. And then we finally get to like a little cluster of like, I don't know, 2 or 3 houses. And again, the road goes between the houses. And I look at the road and I'm like, okay, this car is like 8 feet wide. That road is like 5 feet wide. I'm like, this is not even going to out of here. This is just gonna crash into the road. So I'm like, I can't go through that. Like, I just can't go through that. So I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I was cool as a cucumber, but I'm in my mind, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, my GPS is not working. We don't have a signal. There's nothing here. Everything is turned off. There's no lights. Like, again, I'm
not sure this is a road.
I'm not afraid for my life, but I'm like, I mean,
Right.
we're just gonna have to sleep in the car. Anyway, so I see 2 people in that little cluster of houses. I see 2 people going through the front door, and I was like, well, they're about to get a knock on their door. And I'm like, I don't speak Italian, but I speak Spanish and I speak some French, and combined, we will have a conversation. Right. So I knock on their door for help, and they were American. I was like, oh my God, my American saviors. So
they were on vacation or something, or
Chantal, what was her name? Chantal and Dan from Cincinnati. Dan is 2nd generation Italian, and that was like his grandfather's house. And he like would spend summers there.
Oh shit!
So it was the summer, and they were spending it there.
Okay, so Dan knows the area.
Dan knows the area, and they were from Cincinnati. And we even went inside their house so we could use their Wi-Fi, but then even the Wi-Fi wasn't working. And he's like, I'm going to get in my car and just follow me. I know where your hotel's at. But you know what was really funny? And this looks like something from a movie. So while I'm inside the house, I'm like, oh my God, like I fucked up the car. I scratched it up. And he's like, oh, don't worry. That happens here all the time. It's a rental. You have insurance. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. That happens here all the time. And I'm like, oh, okay. When he comes outside and he sees the car, he's like, holy shit. And I was like, yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, Dan from Cincinnati.
Yeah, Dan and Chantal from Cincinnati. So,
yeah.
No, from Cleveland. Sorry, from Cleveland. From Cleveland. I even made a Drew Carey joke. I'm like, Cleveland rocks. And they followed them back to the hotel, and I was like, can I give you a hug? Like,
so where were you even on the road?
I don't know where I was. I don't know where I was. And then it's funny because then the next day in pure daylight, our GPS is working perfectly fine. And I realized that to get to that little town, there's like a ring road. And I'm like, well, the GPS didn't tell me about the damn ring road. And it's like actually super easy. So yeah, I got stuck between 2 walls. And when that happened, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a whole section in the podcast. I was like, first, I'm not going to be able to tell you for like another, at that point, 2 weeks. And I'm like, secondly, this is going to be a whole section of the podcast. How I got stuck between 2 walls in Italy, in Sorrento, on top of a mountain with no GPS and no signal and no nothing.
Yes, pero primos, that's what happens. We always think of you guys first. So the content.
Buddy. Because the car was like... And my mom's like, pero tú vas a seguir para adelante. I'm like, bueno, si voy para atrás, I'm going to have to go through it anyway again. So... like,
I'm still curious to know what that road was.
I think it was a road for buggies.
For Vespas.
Oh, yeah, for Vespas.
For Vespas.
But, GPS didn't know we were in an SUV.
It should have. You were using the GPS in an SUV.
The car, I know, right? Shouldn't you think it would know the dimensions of the car?
It should.
But you know what, though? When that happened, I was like, this is how people follow the GPS onto the lake.
Yeah.
Because you're following it blindly, and you're kind of like...
Reroute.
Okay, it's telling me to go forward 500 feet. Boom. So, yeah. That's...
Bueno, but see, I remember one time when we were on a trip somewhere that... Don't you remember? Mm-hmm. We were driving, it was like on a cliff, and all of a sudden the thing said to turn right, and you're like, if I turn right, we die. Yeah. We're off the cliff.
Yeah.
So, the GPS, not always your friend.
So that was my Italian adventure.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. There's another one, but that was the biggest one.
That was the biggest one.
Yeah, that was the biggest one.
Do you have time for the other one?
I do have time for the other one.
All right.
Are we on like?
Well, we're already at like almost an hour.
Okay, no, we have more. We have more time.
Okay.
So by the second or third day, I was a pro driving these roads, right?
Well, I mean, if nothing else, you already knew where not to go.
That is true.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going further up the mountain.
Right.
Like our hotel literally is like past it. It's farms and farmers.
There's no reason to go.
There's no reason, you know.
Okay.
Like we're staying put. And then Chantel and Dan.
Right.
But from Cleveland.
From Cleveland.
Right. So on like the second or third day that we were there, and yeah, again, I'm a pro in the streets, driving around there. My cousin, his son got sick.
Oh, while there?
Yes, he actually got like strep. They had a medical emergency too. Like 3 hours before their flight, they were at Baptist urgent care because he had strep. So they didn't tell anyone, and they were like, we're just gonna have to roll with it.
Just shut up, take the antibiotics, and go.
Go, right? But by this time,
because this was your cousin that is the brother of your cousin getting married, yeah,
right. So by this time, he was on the antibiotics. I think like a week, and he still had a fever. He wasn't eating. I think he was like having diarrhea and all that. So you know, and he was like underweight and all that. So they were concerned,
of course.
So again, this didn't happen in Rome or even in downtown Sorrento. This was on the mountain. So since I had a banged up car,
but a car,
they were like, listen, can we take him to the doctor? Do you mind taking us? I'm like, of course, of course. So we took him to the doctor. So I wasn't expecting Baptist urgent care, right? I wasn't expecting that.
Please tell me it was one of the buildings that you scraped through.
No. So it was one of those, like, the directions were like, okay, pass the gas station and then take a right, and then at the palm tree take a left. Those were the directions they gave him at the hotel. And you know, when you see like a fence that's like crooked, you know, take a right. So we eventually find this establishment. It was in the middle of nowhere. It was like brightly lit, like dimly lit, I mean. And it was like this abandoned building that like had paint crumbling and everything. And I'm like, oh, so this is how people die in shows. so we get there. So my cousin's wife, like, she cracked up because I tell her, do you think this is out of network? So we get there.
Still feel.
And there's like one doctor, and that's it.
For the town.
There was just one doctor. I don't know if it was for the town, for the municipality, for the mountain. There was just one doctor in this crumbling building that was dimly lit. And I'm like, I couldn't make this up.
Right.
Like, I couldn't make this up. And I was like, listen, that doctor's probably going to come out with still that little silver thing that we wear on their head.
Yeah.
Like, if they come out with a saw, we're leaving.
It's a good rule.
And it was in Italian.
Oh, shit.
So I was like, see, we were outside. There's no waiting area. You wait outside.
Like outside the building?
Yes, outside of the crumbling building. Paint falling building. Luckily, there was like 3 chairs. So there we were waiting because there was like another kid in there first. But there was nobody else. Okay. And it was pitch black and nothing else, dimly lit. And I was like, oh my gosh. So we were like, listen, when you go in, we have to come up with a code word.
100%.
Yes. I was like, what's the code word? Aguacate. Okay. So if you hear me saying aguacate, I'm going to park the car in front of the door. Like, and I'm just like, darn, the car's already banked up.
What's another?
I'm just going to drive the car in. Or I was like, or let me see if there's some other projectile I could come up with. So I'm like, because there was nobody there. Like, nobody there. We were in the middle of like...
This is how people lose their kidneys.
I was like, we were in the middle of, I don't know, like, we could have, might as well been in the middle of the Atlantic. Like, there was nobody there, not a soul. And it was dimly lit, and the building was like, again, it looked like something out of a movie. I'm like, well, here we are.
This is how we die.
So I was like, okay, the code word is, I think it was either aguacate or lechon. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stand attentively, wait to be called. And, they were fine. It was fine. They were fine. But I was like, oh my God, that adventure was hilarious. Like, we had so much fun because it was one of these things that, like, we were there looking for the place. And I don't know, I mean, I know we were in the middle of the mountain. We weren't, we were in a rural area. But, it's Italy. I was like, okay, Italy's not like in the, it's Italy. I was expecting some type of like, again, maybe not a bright and shiny Baptist urgent care, but it was one of these things that like when we drove up to it, I'm like, wait, is this the doctor's office?
Like you were expecting something like a quaint cottage or something.
I was like, this looks like hostel. Like, are we supposed to be stepping inside that building with a child nonetheless? Like... That's why I told him, if they come out with a trench coat that has bloodstains, we're leaving. We're leaving. Like, we're leaving.
You know what, kid? You'll be better off.
You're leaving.
You'll be better off.
But no, thankfully everything works out. But that was like a lot of fun. So yeah, that was
your Italian.
That was my Italian escapade.
And I'm sure I'm sure that's only scratching the surface of the surface.
Scratching would be the proper word. Scratching. A lot of scratching.
A lot of scratching?
A lot of scratches.
No, a lot of scratches. Oh, scratches of the car. Yes, yeah, that's true. Scratches. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, something else I really did want to say, and I didn't tell you. So, at the first party for my cousin, I was there talking to a few people, and I have somebody come up to me.
They recognize your voice.
I was like, you sound familiar. And I was like, oh no, here we go. He's like, oh my God, you're from Pero Let Me Tell You. And I'm like, yes, I am. I'm DJ. I'm the cousin of the groom. And he's like, oh man, I love you guys. In fact, I have your census t-shirt that I bought at Miracle at
Carnival on the Mile.
Carnival on the Mile. And I was like, wow, here I am in the middle of rural Italy. And we found a Pero Primo.
We're everywhere.
Yeah, I took a picture with him.
They are everywhere.
Yep. Yeah. So
that's fucking awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, wait, what?
The only way that story would have been better is if the Pero Primo was Dan from Cleveland.
Can you imagine?
It's the only way that story gets better.
Can you imagine? If that would have happened, I would have called you right then and there. Yeah. I was like, you're not going to believe what I'm telling you.
It's 3 a.m. I don't care.
You're not going to believe what I'm about to tell you. Like, you're not going to believe it.
It's the only way it could have gotten better.
Yeah. So, yes, I fucked up the car. But that's why you have insurance.
But you got the insurance.
And you know what?
Which you never get.
You know what? Honestly, when it was all over, I'm like, this is going to make for great stories. And at the end of the day, it's all about the great stories.
It's what we live for. It's what the memories you take home.
You know, it's funny that when we were driving back to Sorrento, I was like telling my dad, I'm like, I gotta stop at an Auto Nation or an auto shop and get some fucking wax, which I did.
Oh, you did?
I did, and I started to try to wax that thing off. I mean, I waxed off a little bit, but there was damage.
All right, Danity Kane.
It was structural damage.
Structural damage. Yeah, no, even to the houses.
Fuck the houses. They've been there 1,000 years.
Yeah, and all it took was you to come and fuck them up.
I'm sure I'm not the only person that's gotten stuck between two walls. No, the car didn't even have a sunroof, so I was like, fuck.
There was not.
No, come on. My mom, pero tú vas a echar para adelante, vas a echar para atrás. I'm like, well, yeah, now that we're in this predicament,
you gotta go forward.
You can only go forward.
Especially not then. No. Because I would have made it worse.
I mean, I'm just glad I didn't think that I could overtake the then smaller road. Because then I would have been, remember before we started recording, I showed you that scene of Austin Powers? Yeah. I would have been him. Listeners, you know in Austin Powers, in the first scene, the first Austin Powers, when he's in that little cart in like the secret, the Dr. Evil's lair, and he's like stuck between two walls. That was me in Italy.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
I mean, not when you were experiencing it, but
but
as a story, it's wonderful.
Kept the humor about it. I did, and I was like, we're not gonna die. We're just gonna be,
it's an inconvenience
for about 8 hours. Tristan was there, so we may have. You know, that's a part of the trip that this is part of the story. I was like, Tristan is going to be in this car for 8 hours until the sun comes up. Like, there may be a national crisis in Italy.
You might want to take your chances with the doctor.
I want to take my chances with the even less wide wall.
Yes.
Street, I mean.
You know, fuck it. Let's just go.
It's like pushing the car through. It's like, didn't you have butter? Butter the car through.
Take the doors off. Just go.
Yeah, go.
Just go.
So
make it work.
Yeah, we got stuck between two walls. But the good thing is I had a lot of carbonara.
Yes.
And life is good.
Yes. And you had a fantastic time at the wedding from all the footage that I saw.
Great time at the wedding.
Yeah. It looked like a beautiful, beautiful celebration.
So that was my Italian trip, Pero Primos. There was more to it, but then it would be like a series of Italian episodes.
Right.
And I don't think you guys want to hear me talk about that.
Yeah, it would have to be a mini series.
So I actually want to talk about something else before we give our last sodas, and it's actually not a good thing.
It's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing, but it really angers me, and maybe you saw it.
Okay.
But I mean, again, I know we're talking mostly about my Italian trip and everything that happened, but I just felt that this is something that happened this week that must be mentioned. Did you see the thing where they vandalized Jenny Rivera's star and Selena's star?
Oh, was Selena's too?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't see Selena. I saw Jenny Rivera. I saw Jenny Rivera, but I didn't see Selena.
Like, what the hell? What is wrong with the world? And then not only that,
Jenny Rivera's has only been like 2 weeks.
Not only that, well, they vandalized hers first, and then I think they cleaned it up, and then they vandalized it again, and then they vandalized Selena's. And when I saw it on social media, you have to read the comments. I'm like,
I'd rather not.
I'm like, what is wrong with people?
I'd rather not. I'd rather not read the comments. It's
like, how is that ever okay? So I needed to get that out. I need to get that off my chest. So,
the reason I didn't read the comments...
Nobody who listens to us would do that type of thing.
Right. But the reason I didn't read the comments is the same reason that I wish you hadn't told me about the comment section about your cousin's wedding thing.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah, it's
terrible.
Terrible people out there. But anyways, well, all this carbonara made me really thirsty.
I mean, you had to get...
I would still go for carbonara right now.
Listen, I don't think the carbonara made you thirsty. I think that trying to fit through 2 walls...
Yeah.
That will dehydrate a person.
That will.
Yeah.
That usually will.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So last soda time?
It is last soda time, yes. Do you want to go first?
No, you go first. I've talked enough.
All right. So see, I have 2 last sodas, and I one of them is a little like heavier, so I think I'm gonna go with the lighter one just to keep it, because this is a fun episode. This is a very light episode. My last soda is actually gonna go to CCW. So as you guys know, we had Domino. AKA Banolo, AKA Adrian Castro, on the show a couple of weeks back. And while you were coming back from Italy, I went to go see him wrestle, and at Unbranded, and it was so much fun. It was such a great atmosphere, such a great experience. I strongly recommend, if you're in Miami and you're looking for something interesting, different to do on a Saturday. They have these matches once a month at Unbranded. I say go. It's a great time. Not only will Unbranded is a nice place, the atmosphere of the matches is fantastic. Luchado is always there selling their donuts, so you can always have that. But I will say this, one of the things that I loved about it the most was, with Adrian being part of the pop-up community, and we've talked about this, there were so many people there from the pop-up community. I mean, like Masa Craft was there, some bartenders from Union, Alfred from Jay Wakefield was there. And
Alfred.
Yeah, and it was just so nice to see everybody. I mean, Masa Craft, okay, to give you an idea, Masa Craft not only was there, they were in the front row, and they brought, Luis had a piece of caña that he was like waving around.
Oh, they weren't playing.
No, and Naira had brought cazuelas.
Wow.
When he came out, so it was a fun night, and it was a lot of fun, and we all had a great time. But it was also just nice to see people who we know supporting each other, and that's something that I know we've talked about, not necessarily on the show, but just amongst ourselves, that being part of that community of the pop up and breweries and all that. It's nice to see that type of fostering and coming together, and obviously it's a testament to how nice of a guy Adrian is that they all came out to support him.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
I was in Italy.
I know. You were
Next time.
next time.
But
yes.
but I'm glad he won.
He won, absolutely won. Yeah,
glad
he
he
kicked
won.
ass. He kicked ass, and I'm glad that he gave us a fan.
Yes.
Because it was hot as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we had his big Domino fan. We were
I almost
fanning
took his
each other.
shirt to Italy.
Yeah,
Because I like his shirt, but then, again, I packed sensibly, not like Beyonce and Jay-Z.
right. Yes. I think your parents took it though.
Anyway, I actually want to give my last soda to a professor of mine back in college. So today, on Fake Friday, I was part of I was part of a discussion, and there was a panel, and it was about people who are different. They do advocacy work and artists and stuff like that. And one of the people on there was Dr. Marvin Dunn, who was a professor of mine at FIU. And he is just a remarkable person. People down here know him, especially people, the Black community know him because he writes a lot about the Black experience and Black history, especially pertaining to South Florida and Miami. And, he was very instrumental because I, as you know, and, maybe I've shared some of this here on the podcast. For many, many years, I've been into community work and advocacy work and organizing and stuff like that. And he was one of these people that was very instrumental because we did a lot of projects and specifically in Overtown with him. And, he was one of these people that at the time that I was doing all these projects with him, I didn't get it. I was sort of like, oh, why am I spending time doing this? But by the end, I got it. And I think that was one of the turning points for me, when you're like 19, 20, 21 years old, that I was like, okay, I see how this affects the community and how it helps people and all that. So it was very instrumental. And, he is an absolutely wonderful historian. And he was talking today about how he was in the military and how initially he was treated differently when he was, because he was Black. And he was saying stories about all of that. And, but he has very much of a winning sort of personality. Like, he's like, I'm not a victim because look at all the things I've accomplished. He's just like, I go through obstacles. And, he's just a remarkable person. So he gets my last soda, Dr. Marvin Dunn. He's a historian here in Miami. He gives a lot of tours.
Okay.
And, about, they go around like historically Black areas here in Miami. And, he's very big on you have to know history. You have to teach history. You have to talk about history because, so many times it's erased or it's changed, and you have to know it. So, and that's something I really subscribe to. So,
yeah, no, that's a great one. I mean, he sounds like somebody who subscribes to something that I like to think of, which is it's not a problem, it's a challenge. So, love it.
Anyway, bueno, that was you speak it some Italian. I don't.
Yeah, io parlo po'.
It's incredible how by speaking Spanish you can communicate clearly with somebody in Italian.
Yeah.
I mean, I was having conversations with people in Italian.
Yeah.
Very slowly, and I understood about probably 80% of it.
That's about right, yeah.
I was like, okay, I just understood almost everything you said here.
Yeah, and I mean, it's double when they're from Cleveland.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I was there like, Aki, boy, I'm going to speak in Spanish and French, and God help me. And they're like, hi, how are you doing? Like, oh, it's Celeste. Celeste and Dan from Cleveland. So, actually, Celeste and Dan from Cleveland, you got a last soda, too.
Yeah.
You got a year's supply of soda.
Yes, despite the fact that you were in Italy, you're not getting the Beverly.
You know what? I thought about that when I came home. I should have gone on a quest to find the Beverly.
Oh,
the
dude.
nasty soda that tastes like
earwax
that we just know it's from Italy because in Epcot Center and the Coke World and Coke World in Atlanta, they say it's Italian. Can you imagine if I would have called you?
That you would have called me.
Look at what I'm having.
No, that you should have FaceTimed me.
I'm like, I'm having a Beverly. Actually, no, I'm not having a Beverly. I'm like showing you the Beverly. So anyway, yes, here's to some carbonara.
Yes.
I still want more.
I mean, I'm not going to say no.
I didn't
You didn't OD on carbonara.
Can you? Like,
I don't think it's possible.
Anyway, everybody. Well, I hope you listened, laughed, and learned, and really laughed at my stuck between two walls. But it was certainly an adventure. So,
all right. Well, do you want me to take it? I mean, I've been doing it for 3 weeks. Do you want to end it?
No, you end it.
All right. So we hope you listened, laughed, and learned. And don't forget your cafecito, your croqueta, and your carbonara.
And your carbonara, yes.
And your carbonara.
Yes.
And that is episode 306.
And by the way, people, there's no tostada cubana or medianoche in Italy. And Italians don't have cappuccinos after noon.
Oh, no?
No, that's an American thing. Cappuccinos is like a morning drink.
Oh, okay. They have the espresso.
Just like, you know how you know a restaurant in Italy is a tourist trap? The menu is in English.
Oh.
And they have fettuccine Alfredo. Fettuccine Alfredo is not Italian
At all.
So, más americano que apple pie.
That's as American as a gordita crunch.
That's like, do you know where the Caesar salad is from?
Probably like Minnesota.
It was invented in Tijuana, Mexico. By an Italian, though.
Okay, at least.
But it's from Tijuana, Mexico.
I think that had an anniversary this week.
The Caesar salad?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I saw that somewhere.
Don't expect to see a Caesar salad well, you could see it in Italy. It's just not.
It's just going to be at a Mexican restaurant.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Anyway, well, we'll catch up with you guys later, and thank you for listening to my Italian escapade.
Yes, cuídense mi gente.
Ciao, Italia.
Ciao, arrivederci. Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.